two FBI agents take the elevator to the 7th floor of a penthouse at 133 East 64th Street. Bernard Madoff opens the door in pajamas and a blue bathrobe. He has known they were coming for less than 12 hours. Agent Theodore Cacciopi says, very quietly, "We're here to find out if there's an innocent explanation." Madoff doesn't sit down. He doesn't ask for a lawyer. He doesn't even pause. There is no innocent explanation. $18 billion in real money, $64.8 billion in fictional gains on paper, 41,000 victims across 127 countries, 20 years of fabricated statements. But that is not the story. The story is this: 8 letters, 9 years. One quantitative analyst in a cubicle in Boston tried to tell the Securities and Exchange Commission what Bernie Madoff was, in writing, with mathematical proof. And every time he submitted, the SEC investigated him for market manipulation. Bernie Madoff was not caught by his auditors. He was not caught by his regulators. He was not caught by his bankers. In the end, he was reported to the FBI by his own 2 sons. In 1960, Bernie Madoff founds Bernard L. Madoff Investment Securities with $5,000 he saved working as a lifeguard and installing lawn sprinklers, plus a $50,000 loan from Saul Alpern, an accountant who happens to be his fiancée, Ruth's father. Alpern does more than lend money. He brings in clients, friends, relatives, fellow accountants, retirees in the Catskills. The original Madoff investor list reads like a guest book for a Yom Kippur dinner in Queens, 1962. This is the seed of what financial historians will later call affinity fraud, a fraud that travels through trust. For the first decade, Madoff runs a legitimate, if scrappy, penny stock brokerage. He's good. He's fast. By the late 1970s, he's pioneering electronic order routing, a system that bypasses the New York Stock Exchange floor entirely and matches buyers to sellers by computer. In 1971, his firm helps found the NASDAQ. By 1990, Bernie Madoff is the chairman of the NASDAQ. But somewhere in the 70s, David Kugel, an arbitrage trader at the firm, will eventually testify in federal court. Madoff starts fabricating backdated trades to create fake historical gains for special clients. He never says when exactly. He never tells the SEC. He never tells his sons. He never tells his wife. By 1986, he opens a checking account at Chase Manhattan, account number ending in 703. He calls it the 703 account. For the next 22 years, every dollar that comes into Madoff's investment advisory business goes here. No securities are bought. No trades are placed. Old investors are simply paid with the money of new investors. One account, one bank, 22 years. Between 1986 and 2008, $150 billion in deposits and transfers move through this single checking account at a single bank. Nobody at JP Morgan Chase, which absorbs Chase Manhattan in 2000, asks why. In the Lipstick Building at 885 3rd Avenue, Madoff occupies 3 floors. The 18th and 19th floors hold the legitimate market-making business. Hundreds of traders, computers humming, his 2 sons, Mark and Andrew, running the desk. Below them, on the 17th floor, behind a locked door that almost nobody from the upper floors has ever been through, sits a small staff of about a dozen people. They print phony account statements on IBM AS400 mainframes. They fabricate trade tickets, backdated to whatever prices the historical record demands. They have a name for what they do internally. They call it Frank's work, after Frank DePascali, the man Bernie hired straight out of high school in 1975, and who would become, in everything but title, the chief operating officer of the Ponzi scheme. In 1992, the SEC gets close and walks away. Two accountants named Frank Avellino and Michael BLMIS, who took over Saul Alpern's practice after he retired, have for years been running a quiet feeder fund. They collect money from friends and family, hand it to Madoff, and pay out a steady 13.5% to 20% annual return. By 1992, they manage $441 million, every penny of which is invested with Madoff securities. The SEC investigates Avellino and BLMIS for selling unregistered securities. The agency orders the fund liquidated and forces the money to be returned to investors. The story makes the Wall Street Journal. And then the SEC closes the file. Nobody at the agency asks the obvious question. If a feeder fund has been paying 20% returns for years on this scale, where exactly is that money coming from? Bernie Madoff has just been handed 16 more years. In May of 2000, Harry Markopolos' boss hands him a Madoff prospectus. The instruction is simple. Build us a fund that does what Madoff does. Returns of 10 to 12% a year, almost never down a month, mathematically smooth. Match it. Markopolos has a master's degree in finance from Boston College and the Chartered Financial Analyst designation. He sits down at his cubicle. 4 hours later, he stands back up and tells his boss, "This is a fraud. There are only two ways Madoff is producing these returns. Either he is front-running his market-making customers, which is illegal, or he is running a Ponzi scheme. Either way, this is a fraud." The strategy Madoff claims to be running is called split-strike conversion. The mechanics, simplified. You buy a basket of large blue-chip stocks, you sell a call option above the current price, you buy a put option below the current price. In theory, this gives you a narrow band of returns, limited upside, limited downside. In practice, the strategy has been studied. It cannot produce what Madoff is producing. For one thing, the options market in those stocks is not deep enough. To execute the strategy Madoff claims to run, on the scale he claims to run it, he would need to be buying and selling more options than exist on the Chicago Board Options Exchange. The whole market is not big enough for the trades to be real. Markopolos writes this up. In May 2000, he sends it to the SEC's Boston regional office. Nothing happens. He sends it again in 2001. Nothing. He keeps building the case. By 2005, his analysis runs 21 pages, organizes 29 separate red flags, and arrives at the SEC titled, "The World's Largest Hedge Fund is a Fraud." What Markopolos does not know, what nobody knows until SEC Inspector General David Kotz finishes report H0508 in August of 2009, is that the SEC has, by then, opened 5 separate examinations into entities connected to Madoff. Every one of them has missed it. One examiner, asked to assess a Madoff trading desk in 2003, asks Madoff's son Mark for a copy of recent trade tickets and is handed a stack of paper. He does not call the depository trust company to verify that the trades actually settled. If he had, he would have learned that they had not, because they did not exist. But there is something else inside the SEC's New York office, and it is not on Markopolos' radar. After receiving his 2005 memorandum, the SEC opens an enforcement investigation. It is not into Bernard Madoff. It is into Harry Markopolos. The agency theorizes, for reasons made clear in subsequent IG testimony, that Markopolos is a competitor of Madoff's, attempting to manipulate Madoff's reputation in order to drive customers to his own firm. The investigation goes nowhere, but it goes on for years. Meanwhile, Markopolos starts carrying a Smith & Wesson. He buys a shotgun. He instructs his wife on which file folders to hand the police if he is found dead. He inspects the underside of his car for explosive devices before driving his children to school. Bernie Madoff manages money for some of the most powerful people in finance and a tier of the global mafia. And Harry Markopolos has just put 21 pages on the SEC's desk explaining who they are. He does not assume the SEC will protect him. The financial press is not better. In May 2001, Barron's journalist Erin Arvidlund publishes a piece titled "Don't Ask, Don't Tell," questioning in print how Madoff produces his returns. The article goes nowhere. The same month, Michael Ockrent publishes substantially the same analysis in Mahedge, a trade publication for hedge funds. Madoff investors read it, shrug, and stay invested. Between 2001 and 2008, Madoff's assets under management roughly triple. The 17th floor, Frank De Pascali, Annette Bongiorno, Joanne Krupi, Daniel Bonventre, and a small staff, fabricates monthly statements for what will eventually be roughly 41,000 individual accounts. Bongiorno is a Queens woman who started as Bernie's secretary in 1968 and who, when she is finally arrested in 2010, will own 4 properties and a 1962 Bentley. She tells federal investigators she had no idea anything was wrong. She has been printing statements with no underlying trades for 30 years. Bernie's brother, Peter Madoff, is the firm's chief compliance officer. His role, on paper, is to ensure that Madoff Securities complies with SEC regulations. He will plead guilty in 2012, 10 years in federal prison. In October 2008, the global financial system seizes. Hedge funds around the world face a wave of redemption demands as their own investors panic. By the first week of October, Madoff Securities is being asked for $7 billion it does not have. For decades, the math of a Ponzi scheme has worked for Bernie because new money has always exceeded redemptions. In October 2008, for the first time since he started, the equation inverts. He cannot find anyone to put new money in fast enough. JP Morgan Chase, which has held the 703 account since absorbing Chase in 2000, conducts its own quiet due diligence review. The bank withdraws $250 million of its own money from Madoff feeder funds. It does not warn its clients. It does not warn regulators. It simply leaves. By mid-November, Bernie is down to a few hundred million in liquid funds against billions in redemption requests. His sons Mark and Andrew, who have grown up inside the firm, who run the legitimate market-making desk on the 18th and 19th floors, do not know that downstairs, the 17th floor has nothing real left in it. They are about to find out. On Wednesday, December 10, 2008, Madoff Securities holds its annual Christmas party at the office. Bernie hands out unusually early bonuses, physical checks, signed, prepared the previous day by Frank De Pascali. Mark and Andrew watch him and grow concerned. Bonuses are normally distributed in February. Bernie does not look well. Bernie tells his sons he wants to meet at the apartment. Mark and Andrew follow him uptown. In the living room at 133 East 64th Street, Bernie tells them calmly that the entire investment advisory side of the business is a fraud. He has, he estimates, $200 to $300 million left. He intends to use it to pay select friends and employees. Then he plans to turn himself in. Mark and Andrew leave the apartment immediately. They drive to the office of an attorney, Martin Flumenbaum, who places a call to federal prosecutors in the Southern District of New York. Within an hour, the FBI has a name and an address. At 6:30 a.m. on Thursday, December 11, 2008, agents Theodore Cacciopi and Brian Carey of the FBI ring the doorbell. Bernie answers in pajamas. Ruth is at the door behind him. The agents do not raise their voices. We're here to find out if there's an innocent explanation. There is no innocent explanation. Bernie is read his rights, allowed to dress, and taken to FBI New York field office in Lower Manhattan for processing. By noon, his arrest is on the front page of every major newspaper in the world. By the end of the week, investigators searching Madoff's office have recovered, from his desk drawer, signed checks made out to friends and selected employees totaling $173 million. The checks are evidence now. The money is no longer his. On June 29, 2009, Bernard Lawrence Madoff is sentenced to 150 years in federal prison. The judge, Denny Chin, calls the fraud extraordinarily evil. Madoff is 69 years old. Frank DePascali pleads guilty, cooperates extensively with federal prosecutors, and provides the architecture of the 17th floor operation that the SEC could never assemble on its own. He is awaiting sentencing. Federal prosecutors have asked the judge for leniency in exchange for his cooperation. When he dies of lung cancer in May 2015, he never receives a sentence. Peter Madoff pleads guilty in 2012. 10 years. Annette Bongiorno, 6 years. Daniel Bonventre, 10. Joanne Krupi, 6. 5 additional employees of the 17th floor, convicted at trial in 2014. On December 11, 2010, exactly 2 years to the hour after his father's arrest, Mark Madoff is found dead in his Mercer Street apartment. He is 46. He has been sober for 19 months. His 2-year-old son, Nicholas, is asleep when investigators arrive. The note Mark leaves does not blame his father. It blames himself for not seeing it sooner. Andrew Madoff develops mantle cell lymphoma in 2003. It returns in 2012. He dies in September 2014. He never speaks to his mother again. Bernie Madoff dies in the Federal Medical Center, Butner, North Carolina, on April 14, 2021. He is 82. Irving Picard, the court-appointed trustee, spends 16 years recovering money. He sues hedge funds, banks, charities, and individuals who pulled money out of Madoff before the collapse. He files over 1,000 actions. By December 2024, he has returned $14.829 billion to victims, approximately 94% of all real money lost. It is the highest recovery rate in the history of Ponzi schemes. In July 2010, the Dodd-Frank Wall Street Reform Act creates the SEC Office of the Whistleblower. Under the program, anyone who provides original information leading to enforcement action receives between 10 and 30% of the resulting monetary sanctions. By 2024, the program has paid out over $1.5 billion in awards. The legislative history is explicit. The program exists because of Harry Markopolos. Markopolos, who carried a pistol for 9 years, who inspected his car for explosives, who was investigated by the agency he was trying to help, never received $1 from the program. The bounty rules apply only to information submitted after July 2010. He has said in interviews that he is fine with this. The Madoff case left an institutional question that has, in the years since, never been properly answered. It was not the auditors. It was not the bankers. It was not the regulators. It was not the financial press. It was a small office in Boston with a quantitative analyst, a calculator, and 4 hours of available time. In the end, what stopped Bernard Madoff was that his own 2 sons, 20 years inside the family business, working for him every day, picked up the phone. If you want the next case in the Downfall Index, subscribe and stay close. Sources for tonight's episode are linked in the description, including Harry Markopolos' full 2005 memorandum, the SEC Inspector General Report H0508, and Irving Picard's trustee filings. Internal dialogue is reconstructed from FBI agent affidavits, plea allocutions, and journalist interviews. Where the record was silent, this script remained silent with it. The 17th floor is empty now.